All right. Hello. Welcome back to the class. We are still on introduction to cybersecurity or introduction to, let me use the word cybersecurity better. I target CEH, that's a certified ethical hacking. So, um, this session, we are going to be looking at the terminologies in information security. Terminologies in information security. Is a good. It's good that we look into this because every profession has its own terminology. Um, in every terminology, they use terms. So if you listen to two medical practitioners discussing, at some point you might get lost because once in a while they bring in some medical terms that only then can understand. So these are some of the terms that are used in information security. These are some of the terms that you might come across when you are watching a video tutorial that is related to cybersecurity, or you're reading a blog, or you're listening to news, or you go for interviews. These are the terminologies that will come in. Some of the terms here are what we are going to be looking into. One is assets, we have vulnerability, we have threats, we have exploits, we have patch, we have risk, zero-day attack, backdoor, advanced persistence, threats, baiting, ransomware, and UIOT. All right, so these are some of the terms. Okay, there are so many terms, but these are some. So assets was assets. Okay. Um, the same means the same thing in English definition for asset. Asset is something that is valuable, right? Here I say asset is any data, any device, or other components of the environment that supports information related activities that should be protected from anyone besides the people that are allowed to view or manipulate the data or information. That is called an asset, right? Asset is something that is valuable, okay? Something that needs to be protected at all costs. So every organization can identify what an asset is to them. An asset is not the same thing for every organization, but there is no organization without an asset. So every organization identifies their own asset. Okay, to an organization, it might be a PDF file. To an organization, it might be a database file. It might be a router. It might be a system somewhere, but something there is their asset. So as a cybersecurity professional, you have to identify what the asset of the organizations are and make sure that you protect the assets. Of course, that's the reason why you are being hired. You are hired to protect these assets. You're hired to protect the assets from threats. That is the reason why you are hired as a cybersecurity professional. Next is vulnerability. What is vulnerability, or what are vulnerabilities? Like I said earlier, vulnerabilities are loopholes. There are faults that a cybersecurity criminal can take advantage of. So when you are being hired, one of your key responsibility is to make sure that the components that are being used for the business functionality operations from your own end out, you have to make sure that they are free from vulnerabilities. Remember, the company hired you to protect their assets. So you won't say, okay, this happened because It is not from my desk. It is your responsibility to ensure the safety of the organization. It's your responsibility to identify the weakness, the loopholes, the vulnerabilities of the organization and ensure that they are properly closed up. All right. So that is what a vulnerability is. Next is threat. Next is threat. Threat. What is threat? Threat is a possible danger. Is something that every organization prays not to have or happen. Let me say this: every organization have something they are scared of. They have something they are scared of, and it's because of that threat that they have to look for an ethical hacker to come and help them secure those those systems. So that is what a threat is. So a threat is a possible danger to a computer system, possible danger as well to an organization. It represents something that an organization doesn't want to happen. So once a system is vulnerable, you know, if a system is vulnerable, an attacker can look for vulnerability there and take advantage there of that. All right. So even an attacker who have started gathering information about an organization is already a threat. Yeah, it's already a threat. Why is he gathering information? As a question. So that is what a threat is. So we'll have exploits. So once a vulnerability is discovered, an attacker will look for an exploit. So an exploit is something that takes advantage of vulnerability in an asset. All right. And since we are talking of machine here or machines here, it's usually a code, so you don't get lost. Exploit, they are usually a code. So this code is written in such a way that it takes advantage of whatever vulnerability a system is having. So that is why vulnerability management is one of the first critical step in protecting an asset. Okay. So that is what an exploit is. It takes an advantage. It's just like we humans, right? If you have a good friend and a good friend knows your weaknesses, your good friend will help you overcome the weakness. All right. A good friend is an example of a white hat hacker. If you have a bad friend and the bad friend knows your weaknesses, he's going to take advantage of that weakness or exploit it. Okay. In that case, the friend is a black hat hacker. So exploit simply means taking advantage of the weaknesses of the vulnerability of the asset. Okay. So that is what. Next is patch. Once you have discovered vulnerability professionally, what you do is that you patch the vulnerability. Let me say it again. Once you've discovered a vulnerability professionally, what you do is that you patch the vulnerability, all right? Or you correct the vulnerability. Okay, so that correction of the vulnerability or patching it is what we call a patch. A patch is a piece of software code. Remember, we are talking of machine here, so everything we are talking on here is, or we're discussing on, is definitely code. For example, if we talk of patch for someone who repairs tire, there are materials they use to patch the tire, but they must first of all discover where the puncture is in the tire. Is until they've discovered that they will not apply whatever material they use in order to patch the tire. So the same way in software, we discover vulnerabilities and we patch them. And we don't patch them with words. It's codes, 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 codes. that we use for all those things. All right. So patch is used for fixing, correcting, or mitigating vulnerabilities. So next is risk. A risk is what is risk? Risk is the impact resulting from from an attack, or let me put it this way: risk is defined as the impact or damage resulting from the successful compromise of an asset. So when the attacker have attacked a system and is successful, the system is compromised, we cannot say the system is at risk. Okay. So the impact, the damage that is going to cause to the organization, that is what a risk is. Okay. Imagine if a hacker is able to hack a bank and steals all the money in the bank, the risk is high. Why? Because the impact is high. All right. So that is why professionally, as a cybersecurity professional, you have to scale using qualitative and quantitative approach to calculate the risk. All right. This is so important, very important. So the risk is the impact. Okay. So let's say a web application is just vulnerable to SQL injection or thereabout. So you see, this risk is high because if an attacker is able to exploit that vulnerability, the impact will be very, very severe. So the formula to calculate risk is threat times vulnerability times impact. So this is where the quantitative and qualitative analysis have a place in. All right. You have to identify the threats. What are some of those threats? You have to identify the threats. Let's say your organization is using HP system. Okay. So you have to identify some of the threats that affect HP systems. So when you are done with that, you now look at the vulnerabilities. You now look at the current vulnerabilities. What are the current weaknesses that HP systems have? Okay. So then you now look at the impacts. If an attacker is able to exploit the vulnerability that a system have, what is the impact? What is the result? What is the damage? Some risks are low, some risks are high. So that brings me to make this statement: every high risk should be avoided. It should be. You must try your best to make sure that you avoid every high risk. Okay. Let me say medium risk. Medium risk, not necessarily that they should be avoided, they should be minimized. Right? There are some risks you can accept that we can manage because the risk is low. Even if an attacker exploits this, the attacker won't get a lot from it. The impact is not high. So these are things we have to calculate and then decide on what the risk is, and then make a decision in either to continue or to go for a new one in order to minimize the impact. So next we'll have what we call the zero-day attack. The zero-day attack is like a new attack that is not known, because in exploit we have what we call known exploits and unknown exploits. The known one are the one who can easily find out. The unknown ones are the ones that there are no way out at the moment, but definitely there should be, or is a type that is just known by maybe very few hackers, okay, or experts. All right, that is what a 0 day is. Let's say you're a manufacturer, or you're a vendor, or you're a developer, and you're developing an application, and you announce to the public that the application is going to be out, let's say tomorrow. Okay. So it gets to tomorrow, you release the application, and that same day you release the application, that application was attacked. All right. That is an example of a 0 day attack. As the new software is coming out, um, maybe something from the patch Tuesdays where the patches need to be released. So those exploits needs to be fixed. So that's what a 0 day attack is. It's an attack that is new, that even sometimes the developers don't know that their system application is even vulnerable to that. Okay. Next is a backdoor. What is a backdoor? Like I said earlier, a backdoor is like a channel, a spare key that gives one access anytime. All right. So that is what a backdoor is. One thing about backdoor is backdoors are always hidden. Remember that these are codes. These are codes. These are figures. These are codes. All right. One thing about backdoors is that backdoors are always hidden. They are hidden from anything that will trigger alarm of its presence. All right. So, or so there's no essence of it being a backdoor if it can be detected. So the essence why it is a backdoor is because it cannot be detected, but it can also be used to gain access at any time and stay as long as you want on that system. So if there's a way an antivirus can dictate it to be a backdoor, then you don't have any backdoor at all, because that backdoor is not going to stay in that system. All right. So you can't have access to that for that system. So that is what a backdoor is. Next is the advanced persistent threats. Advanced persistent threats. So anytime you hear of advanced persistent threats, no is a type of attack which is able to bypass antivirus. I got your attention. Is a kind of attack that can bypass antivirus. It is a threat that is so stubborn that even if you have all the devices in place, your EDR, your antivirus, it is still not going to detect it as a threat. Why? Because it has beat every implication or implementation all those other devices is designed for. So that is what an APT is. All right, advanced persistent threat. Next is baiting. What is baiting? Okay. Baiting is a form of social engineering attack, but this time around, it is too good to be good. All right, to be true, sorry. All right, yeah, sometimes we receive messages that are mind-blowing, that you want a certain amount of money when you know you didn't do any business, that you are expecting any inflow, or you didn't participate in any activity that is expecting just inflow. All right. But sometimes we get emails that are so enticing. For example, a platform telling you that you need to invest a certain amount of money, and at the end of the time, a certain period of time, you will get 30 to 40% or 50% of that. Let me say this as a businessman. There is no organization in the world that will give you 40 to 50% of their profits of their return. Okay, so when it's too good to be good, when it's too good to be true, that is what betting is. It's very common out there. We receive a lot of emails, text messages, telling you to claim something that you know that you never applied for. All right. So the next is ransomware. Okay. Ransomware is also a form of malware, but it is common because as a cybersecurity professional, ransomware is one of the attacks you should be fighting against. Okay, so this one, it is strictly for organization because they know that organizations have money to pay. That is why it's called ransomware. It is a malware that encrypts it encrypts your disk, it encrypts your server, it encrypts your platform, and they will now start asking you for money in return. The way you do on ransom, where someone is kidnapped and a ransom is demanded. Yeah. And organizations' database can be kidnapped. All right. And organization informations can be kidnapped. So, and when that happens, we say it has been the application that is used or the software that I used to engineer that is what we call the ransomware. It's what we call the ransomware. It's very important, okay? So this is what it does. It's very common, but it's a type of malicious software designed to block access to computer system until a sum of money is paid. Maybe you are using a particular system or particular platform, often for work or for what you do. All of a sudden, someone sends an application that now encrypts the usage of that application or that software. So it means that you can't use that software in as much as you have it. And number two, it's not as if that the software is bad. The issue is that someone has already, encrypted those softwares that in order for them to decrypt it, you have to pay them a certain amount of money. So that is what ransomware is all about. Now, if you followed me up to this point and this is making sense, just drop 888 on the chat box. 888 on the chat box. Now, finally on my list, I have the BYOD. BYOD simply means bring your own device. It simply means bring your own device. All right. Sometimes you are working with certain organizations and you are reading their user policies. And while you are reading those policies, you might come across BYOD. It simply means that the employees can come in or bring in their own device and connect to the company's network. So, but there are organizations that do not let you at all come with a device because they are protecting their data. So it means that that organization does not allow BYOV, but there are organizations as well that allow BYOD. All right. So these are all the terminologies I have on my list. Okay. On my list. So I think we should be rounding up in the next 10 to 15 minutes. So let me just round up with this phase so that I know that next class we are looking at another discussion entirely. Next is penetration training testing. Most people get it twisted that ethical hacking and penetration testing are the same. So as we go into this course, we'll get to know whether they are the same or they are not. All right. I just want to be sure you are still here. If you are enjoying this class and you are, it's making sense to you and you are still here, just drop anything on the chat box. Drop anything on the chat box, please. Just go ahead, drop anything on the chat box. All right. Okay. So just drop anything on the chat box. Go ahead. Now, penetration tests and ethical hacking, they share a lot of characteristics, but they are not actually thing. All right. They are not actually the same. They share a lot of characteristics, but they are not actually the same. That is the truth. Okay. All right. So what is penetration test? penetration test is a subclass of ethical hacking, right? So when you say that something is a subclass, it means that that thing is a part of it. If you will recall, when some of us, while we were in school, secondary school, there was this mathematics that we did that we call SET, S-E-T. How many of you still remember that? Still remember SET, S-E-T, SET? We did it as mathematics. And there are things they say that this is a subset of something. All right. So when they say something is a subset of something, it means that it is part of that thing. For example, you can have in a set of what we call a set of 4, you can have 3, 2, and 1. And he said that 3, 2, and 1 are subsets. Right. What it means is that if you look at 4, that I'm going to see 3, I'm going to see 2, I'm going to see 1. I'm just using this just for means of example purpose, all right? For means of example, or purpose of example, right, rather. So it means that in the midst of that thing, that you can see the other one. Okay, the same way when we say that a penetration test is a subset of ethical hacking, it means that in ethical hacking, we can see a subset. We can see a subset, which is penetration test. So since we are all here for the ethical hacking training, it simply means that we are going to be learning penetration testing as well, because you learning ethical hacking means that penetration testing or tests will definitely be taught. It's going to be taught as a subclass on its own. All right. So this is so important. So what are the differences between ethical hacking and penetration testing? Penetration testing is all about finding vulnerabilities. I'm going to say it again. In a penetration testing, your goal is to figure out all vulnerabilities in an asset, in a document, an asset, and document them accordingly. All right. So that is your job. Okay. So why ethical hacking is all about exploiting those vulnerabilities. So penetration testing is all about figuring out, finding out the vulnerabilities. Why ethical hacking is all about what? It's not about what? I said it now. I just want to know who is listening. Okay. I don't want to just want to know who and who. Exploiting the vulnerabilities is ethical hacking. All right. Finding the vulnerabilities is penetration testing. All right. So it is easy to find vulnerabilities, but it is not always easy to exploit them. Yeah. Even we humans, is always very easy to find weakness on someone, but it's always very difficult to exploit the weakness. That you found out that this is someone's weakness does not mean that you can exploit that weakness. For example, you can see a poor man who is wretched. That poor man who is wretched, sometimes we think that we can easily buy them off with money. Is when we get to that point that we get to know that some people value their integrity more than money. So it will be very difficult to exploit that person with money. But it is very easy to identify from his appearance that he's poor. But it is not easy to buy him off because of his values, his principles, and his integrity. But those things, you don't know that they were there. And you don't know that they could be the hindrances. But by just looking at the poor person, by just looking at the poor person or the poor man, you can just identify vulnerability. And what's the vulnerability? That the man is poor. Okay. So I believe you are following me. I believe you're following me. If you are following me, just drop 000 on the chat box. So the same thing is applicable for penetration testing. All right. in penetration testing, we find vulnerabilities. All right. In ethical hacking, those vulnerabilities are exploited. So this is the difference between penetration testing and ethical hacking. All right. All right. Professionally, before you begin any penetration test, there's something we call the rule of engagement. All right. This rule of engagement is technically what gives you more like the legal requirements. All right. Okay. So this is where the permission have been given to you. Remember, I said it's all about permission. You need to get the permission. Okay. So what does a rule of engagement entails? In the rule of engagement, this is where you have to tell the company the methodology that you want to use or you are going to use to conduct the test. Okay. This is where you specify how you want the text to be laid out. This is where you explain the dates, where you are starting and the dates where you are anticipating to stop. You also specify the goals, the liabilities of that penetration test. So you need to state all these things in a role of engagement. Okay, so this way, the company that you are carrying out a test for, we know that you're a professional, all right? They will know that you are a professional. So they will also know that this is also a way of protecting you, because what if in the course of carrying out the text, an external attack, which is not part of the text, is launched on the target? So you don't go about explaining why this didn't happen or why that didn't happen. With the rule of engagement, you are secured, you are covered. All right. So this is so important. Not that when something happens, or maybe you are just about testing and the system is hacked, they will not start pointing fingers on you that you are the one who did that or who infiltrated their network. So this is why you have to have your rule of engagement, where what you do should be clearly penned down and specified. Very clear. It must be clearly spelled out, must be clearly defined, because your safety is also attached to this. All right. So, for example, you work in an organization where what they use is Visual Boss, or you work in an organization, what they use is VMware, or you work in a organization where there are other different approaches they use. And in the course of using that approach, it triggers something which is negative, or the system is attacked. You will not be held responsible for that, because this is so important. It's so important that we take note of this. All right. So the next is milestone. Milestone is before starting a penetration test, it is a good practice, or it is good practice to set up milestones so that your project is delivered as per the date given in the rule of engagement. So if you follow me up to this point and it's making sense, just drop 444 on the chat box. Drop 444 on the chat box. Drop 444 on the chat box. Milestone is applicable to every career, especially careers that involves project and timelines. So the same way, you should know that the same thing is applicable in penetration tests, because you can state and say, okay, give me the first 2 weeks. 2 weeks, I'm going to use it for my reconnaissance and thereabout. So these things must be spelled out. All right. So when conducting a penetration test, you can be called upon to carry out any of these tests, right? It can be called upon to carry out anytime. One is what we call the black box. So when you are conducting a black box test, It simply means that what the company is giving you is their IP address. Let's say you are a penetration tester and a company like AWS conducted you to carry out a penetration test. And the only information they gave to you is their website. Okay. So conducting a black post on that domain name, you can actually tell the kind of domain they use, the kind of server, or whether they are hosting on their own server, shared server, or visual server. You can be able to tell whether the company is running on a or visual server or thereabout. So a black box penetration text is where little or no information is provided about the specific tag. So you see, little information or no information is given to you. All right. And this is so important. This is so important. Very important. So when such happen, it means that you just have to use the information that have been given to you. All right, please. Am I making sense? Am I making sense? So next is white box. White box is usually available when you are using for that, when we are using the organization or working for the organization. For example, if I want to conduct a test or something I want to do, I'm going to go about doing it in a way that it will fit into the white hat concept, all right, a white box concept there. All right, so that is it. So we have what we call the gray box. And the gray box is a box text. Some information is provided and some are hidden. Especially when you are working for a if you are working for if it's a new job, they will always attend to this. All right. At the time I was working for an organization and I was given the privilege of the admin. In as much as I wasn't the admin, but I was given that privilege. So I have to test it very well. All right. So that is the gray box or what it entails. But if it's a black box, you have to look for the credential. You have to look for the credential. Okay, you have to crack your head to find the information. So for gray box, some informations are provided while some are hidden. All right. So finally, is cybercrime and cyber laws. Cybercrime and cyber laws. Now, for this cybercrime and cyber laws, is so important because all we are learning here can be used for good, it can be used for bad. So, but what I encourage anyone that sits under me or I teach is to always make use of the good. Always make use of the good, right? Every country they have their own laws governing them. So for every country you find yourself, you have to read their laws, you have to understand the do's and the don'ts and the penalties if you commit any crime. All right. These are so important. So they are so important. Now, what's going to happen is I'm going to drop a particular website. I'm going to attach it. I think it's here already. If you the reference for this is for Nigeria. If you click on it, it's going to take you to that law. You see it's the laws on this site. It can be found. So later on you can check on it. So you can read of the laws on this file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the link and I'm also going to attach it to whatever I am sending. All right. Now we've come to the end of this class. All right. Let me go over again the summary. of the whole thing, ethical hacking is actually a lucrative course or career, and it's legal. I want to encourage someone who is acting or maybe thinking, is ethical hacking a professional? Is it a career, or is it? Of course it is. So the main goal of an ethical hacker, penetration tester, is to keep the cyberspace secured from black hat hacker who uses their knowledge for malicious activities. All right. So you see that here. So that if you are going in for being an ethical hacker, you know what you are going in for. Also, in the effort to protect data, white hat hacker ensures data must comply to the CIAD. All right. They must comply to the CI tried. They must comply to that. Then the cyber law acts as a shield over cyberspace. This is so important. It acts as a shield, as a protection over cyberspace, preventing cybercrime from occurring. Okay. So the government is committed to developing and enforcing regulations to combat illicit online activities. This is so important. And on this note, I'm going to close and bring this discourse to a closure. All right. Steps to becoming successful ethical hacker or penetration tester. Number one is research. Number two is more research. Number three is much more research. Okay, sorry. So you have to go research, more research, keep on researching, do more and more research. All right, do more and more research. This is the key. There is nothing like I've gotten to the place where I do not need to research. I do not need to go for training. All right. These shouldn't be found in you as an ethical hacker because it entails that you keep researching, keep finding new things, more research, more research, more, and more research. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you so much for being part of this team. It has been an amazing ride. And I want to say thank you as we bring today's discussion on introduction to cybersecurity to bring it to a close. And so next time around, we are going to be looking at something quite different. As we look into those things, it's going to become we're going to start gaining mastery. All right. So next time we meet, we are starting with introduction to what we call introduction to Linux. I pray we have important like this next time so that we can exhaust all the terminals or all the terminals that are used for in using of Linux. All right. Thank you so much, and do have a lovely night's rest. I believe today's session has been lovely. It's been amazing. So can I get a response from you on the chat box to see how great and how amazing today's service is, today's session is? Now, let me also say this, please. I've posted some of the videos as we break and go for research. I save the videos and I've been posting them in badges. I want to recommend that you go to my YouTube page, watch those videos again, watch it again, like it, share, all right, comment, right? These are the ways we can just boost the page. Okay. Share the link, put it on your status, share it with someone you know that needs it. All right, let's keep circulating, let's keep teaching, let's keep reaching to the world. The essence is that we are building synergy through our commitment, through our responsibilities, through our input, and through the whatever we bring on the table. Till I come your way again. My name is still Emmanuel Oleka. Thank you. And you have a lovely night rest. Bye-bye.
Excuse me, sir. Hello, coach. Hello.